Welcome to this Infinity Share Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating, downright mind-blowing neurobiological shift that happens to us when we experience loneliness. We usually think of loneliness as just, a passing feeling of sadness, right? Well, today we're looking at how this epidemic of loneliness is actually a profound biological state. We're going to explore the hidden mechanisms inside your brain, and more importantly, the science-backed tools you can use to optimize your everyday life. We'll specifically focus on how social isolation literally rewires our fear levels, our aggression, and even our physical health.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the isolation horror story, unpack the TAC2 threat response, and then look at actionable protocols to fix it, syncing up, the compassion protocol, social zeitgeibers, and finally escaping the loneliness trap. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The isolation horror story, and exactly what happens when isolation turns deadly.
So, to really grasp the loneliness epidemic, we've got to completely shatter the assumption that it's just an emotion. It is a massive physiological alteration. To see this in action, researchers looked at highly social, peaceful animals, mice. When they take a single mouse, separate it from its siblings, and put it into isolation for just 2 weeks, an incredible, chaotic neurochemical cascade kicks off. And when they finally reunite that isolated mouse with its siblings after that seemingly brief period, something truly terrifying happens to its social brain. Instead of a happy reunion, its behavior completely flips.
It's absolutely wild. That isolated mouse will often become so hyper-aggressive, it will actually try to kill its own brothers overnight. I know, sounds like the plot of a horror movie, right? But it brilliantly illustrates our main point here. Isolation triggers this incredibly potent social stress system that fundamentally alters behavior. It takes you from peaceful to literally homicidal. It's a window into a very specific chemical process that happens when any social species, and yes, that absolutely includes us humans, is forced into prolonged isolation.
Which brings us to Section 2, the TAC2 threat response, our invisible culprit.
So what invisible forces are actually driving this bizarre change? Well, loneliness is driven by a chemical family called Tachikinins, specifically a little peptide called TAC2. And this stuff is massively upregulated during chronic isolation. Why? Well, evolution designed it this way. Think about it. If you're alone in the wild, you are incredibly vulnerable. So your brain just floods your system with TAC2 to keep you hypervigilant and safe. It acts as an evolutionary hair-triggered defense mechanism against any possible threat, actively cranking up your fear, your anxiety, and your aggression just to keep you alive.
To prove just how overwhelming this response is, we have to look at some groundbreaking research from Dr. David Anderson's lab out at Caltech. His team actually tagged this TAC2 peptide with a green fluorescent protein in their subject mice. And the result? You guys. The brains of these isolated mice literally glowed green. That is how overloaded and overwhelmed they were with this fear-inducing chemical. It's such a striking visual representation of the heavy biological toll of just being alone.
When you compare these states side by side, the contrast is stark. A normal social brain is peaceful. It's connected and it's smoothly integrated within the group. But a TAC2 overloaded brain, it's paranoid, it's socially withdrawn, and it's hyper-aggressive. And the real danger for us in the modern world is that this biological shift traps us in a vicious cycle. Because feeling paranoid and being on that hair-triggered defense makes it exceptionally harder to reach out and reconnect with people, which, ironically, is the absolute only thing that would lower those TAC2 levels.
Okay, Section 3, syncing and collective effervescence.
We know the problem, so let's talk solutions. How do we dismantle this TAC2 state? This brings us to a fascinating concept originally coined by sociologist Emil Durkheim and currently being explored by Dr. Dasher Keltner at Berkeley. It's called collective effervescence. Basically, when we engage in group activities, think about going to an amazing live concert, a packed sporting event, or even an intense group workout, something magical happens biologically. Our heart rates and our brain patterns actually begin to synchronize with the people around us. This physiological syncing up is one of the fastest, most effective ways to quiet down the default mode network. That's the specific brain circuit responsible for that sticky, me-centered overthinking that keeps us locked in a state of loneliness. By syncing with the group, you effectively dissolve the ego and signal to your nervous system, hey, we're safe.
Moving right along to Section 4, rewiring through the compassion protocol.
Now, if you're feeling way too anxious to just jump straight into a massive crowd, don't worry. You can use a targeted tool studied extensively by Dr. Richie Davidson at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It's a brilliant internal protocol that you can do entirely on your own.
It's just 3 steps. Step 1, intentionally visualize a stranger or even someone you consider a difficult person. Step 2, actively wish them a life of ease. That's it. Just a few minutes a day of this specific compassion meditation has been proven in randomized control trials to produce incredible results. You actually, measurably, change the temporal parietal junction in your brain. That's the seat of empathy. So by following these simple steps, you are physically rewiring your brain to lower perceived social threats and drastically reduce the anxiety that comes with long-term isolation.
Section 5. Designing Social Zeitgebers. Our next practical tool leverages your environment to signal to your brain that the threat is over. It introduces something called a Zeitgeber, which is essentially a biological pacemaker. It's an environmental cue that sets your internal rhythms. Dr. Davidson's research shows that social interactions function as incredibly powerful social Zeitgebers. He recommends intentionally pairing your daily routines with what he calls social snacks, or brief little interactions. When you anchor your day with these consistent social cues, you are constantly reminding your neurochemistry that you are integrated and you are safe.
To understand why this is absolutely critical right now, get a load of this staggering statistic. 30% of Americans eat every single meal completely alone. 30%. That means nearly a third of the entire population is missing out on one of the most fundamental, deeply ingrained social Zeitgebers in all of human history, simply sharing a meal.
But here is the incredible upside. Making it a deliberate protocol to just eat with another person 3 times a week has profound health implications. This regular social connection is such a powerful driver of long-term health that it reduces bodily inflammation so effectively, it can actually add up to 10 years to your life expectancy. Literally 10 extra years on your life simply by changing how you schedule your meals to include a little human connection. How amazing is that?
And finally, Section 6. Escaping the loneliness trap.
The big takeaway here is that we aren't just victims of our chemistry. We can be the active architects of our biology. When we look at deep biological concepts like the maternal immunization hypothesis, which is this incredible idea that mothers biologically pass down mechanisms of resilience and connection to their babies, we are reminded of a really powerful fact. Our complex social brain is literally designed to heal through connection. It has built-in mechanisms that can completely counteract the devastating hyperaggressive effects of that TAC2 stress system. The neurochemistry of isolation might be strong, but the neurochemistry of connection, that is the ultimate antidote.
So please, remember this validating scientific truth. Loneliness is not a character flaw, not at all. It is a biological state driven by specific peptides, like TAC2, that were originally designed to keep you safe in the wild, but are now just keeping you stuck in a modern loop of anxiety. So stop judging yourself for feeling on edge or paranoid after being isolated. Instead, recognize it for what it is, chemistry. And start using the tools we've talked about today, like synchronized group movement and compassion meditation, to finally signal safety back to your brain. So I want to leave you with this to chew on. Have you ever noticed yourself feeling more irritable, maybe a bit on edge, or anxious when you finally go out after a long period of being alone? Well, now you know exactly why that happens. And more importantly, you have the protocols to actually change it. So how will you rewire your social brain today? If you found this explainer helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to Infinity Share to support our mission of bringing accessible, zero-cost science to the public. Thanks so much for hanging out and geeking out on the science with me, and we'll see you in the next explainer.